Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Taking a look at Venezuela, Barry Weiss's 60 Minutes with a terrible piece of propaganda that we will break down for you. We're also going to update you on a variety of stories with regard to Israel, but specifically, we've just had revealed a cover-up of the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh, who is a Palestinian-American journalist. A lot to get into there about our own government's involvement in that cover-up. AI is coming for our jobs, and we have new numbers and new statements from companies to back that up. 2 military assets crashed into the South China Sea within 30 minutes of each other. Seems like things are going great there. Kamala, apparently running for president. Unbelievable. Really quite extraordinary that she thinks that she has any sort of a prayer going forward or any sort of a role for the country or in the Democratic Party. I'm taking a look at the plot against 2026, against the midterms. And we have Pablo Torre joining us to talk about sports scandals. There were a variety of indictments that came down, pretty fascinating stuff. And I'm really curious to get from him how widespread the rot is, I think is the big question.
Absolutely. Pablo had been described as a human missile. I love this guy. I totally respect him. He's one of the few people in sports journalism actually doing real journalism, doesn't care about the access. So I'm very excited to talk to him. But before we get to that, thank you to everybody who's been subscribing to the show, breakingpoints.com. If you can support us, I did an event recently on Sunday with Hassan Piker. We're going to be dropping that soon. Maybe we'll drop it early for our premium subscribers. Yeah, it's a good idea. I came up with that right on the spot. Oh, it was great. Yeah, we really enjoyed it at the New Yorker Festival. Thank you to them for hosting us. But there you go. That's a reason to subscribe, breakingpoints.com if you are able. If not, no worries. Just please hit subscribe on our YouTube video. If you're listening to this on a podcast, send your favorite episode to a friend or rate us 5 stars if you're listening. With that, let's go ahead and get to Venezuela. Ryan and I revealed quite a bit behind the scenes about the regime change op currently being spearheaded by Marco Rubio. They now have their Radio Rwanda in CBS News under Barry Weiss, where they broadcast a full-on, basically, commercial for regime change in Venezuela. They're saying it's going to be a cakewalk. They've got their leader. They have their Ahmed Chalabi. They have a 100-hour plan how they can peacefully take power. Let's take a listen.
There are reports that the opposition says they have this 100-hour plan with the Trump administration for a peaceful transition. Is there any guarantee that the transition will be peaceful?
There's no guarantee at all. And in fact, one of the things that worries me most is that there's been no apparent negotiation with a key element in all of this story, which is the Venezuelan armed forces. If the Venezuelan armed forces don't go along with this, and by the armed forces I really mean the high command, the people who give the orders, then there's a possibility perhaps the armed forces might split, there's a possibility they might oppose a new government coming in.
He says well-armed Colombian guerrilla groups that Maduro allows to operate in Venezuela might also resist a change in power.
Is there a scenario that the U.S. has to put boots on the ground to keep order?
I can't see a scenario in which they wouldn't have to put boots on the ground.
No scenario, it wouldn't have to put boots on the ground. Oh, the armed forces will just peacefully split apart and they'll just hand power over in their 100-hour plan to this new lady who just happened to get the Nobel Peace Prize and just happens to be funded by the United States government. Also, just another, a pump for Ryan and I's reporting. Did you notice how they talked about the Colombian guerrillas in that story and that what we discovered was USAID's type dollars flowing into Colombia, into Guyana? There are oil projects there. I mean, the whole ground is set, guys. Like, this is full on, and people need to be sounding the alarm. And unfortunately, CBS News is instead broadcasting a commercial for regime change. This is literally like a 2002 style report. Iraq will be a cakewalk. We will be greeted as liberators. Everybody will be happy. We have a great plan in place. And what could possibly go wrong here? And of course, implicit in all of this is the assumption that Maduro is some great drug trafficker, which just is not true. I mean, that's one of those which drives me crazy. They're literally blaming, there were like 500,000 Americans have died of fentanyl, and that's on Nicolas Maduro. It's not. It's literally not. Is some cocaine coming from there? Yeah, something like 7% of cocaine, 93% of cocaine. Colombia and Mexico, 100% of fentanyl. Mexico and China, almost all of it in Mexico, precursors from China. That's it. I mean, these are facts. These are facts from the United States intelligence community classified intel assessment as of now, as I can report, and as publicly available from the United Nations, from the United States, from the DEA, everywhere. You know, you don't need a functioning brain to know this is complete BS.
Yeah, and it would have been nice to see that really, you know, dug into in the 60
There's
Minutes
nothing.
piece.
Yeah.
But instead what they do is they go and they talk about, you know, oh, the poverty and oh, the human rights abuses and the oppression. And, you know, Americans are good people and they look at this, oh, these people are really suffering. Maybe we do have to do something. So building the case. And it's also, it is incredible to me, like in the buildup to Iraq, there was a lengthy process of propagandizing the American people. Like they felt like they really had to make an elaborate case. Now it's so slapped together. Everybody knows what the administration is selling is a complete and total lie, yet it gets sort of taken seriously. You know, they routinely call these boats that are being blown up drug boats, even though we have no idea that literally any of them are actually carrying drugs. They just sort of accept the premise, even if they'll put in there, well, probably not that much fentanyl comes from Venezuela, but put that aside. Look at what a bad guy Maduro ultimately is. So they interviewed this guy, Ambassador James Story, is the last American diplomat at the now closed U.S. embassy in Venezuela. They interview him to talk about what a terrible guy Maduro is. And I'm not here to like defend Maduro. I'm just saying, like, why are we going to do another regime change war? Will we never learn our lesson on how disastrous these things are for our country, for their country, for the region, et cetera? In any case, let's take a listen to that.
This is a very bad actor sitting on top of the world's largest known reserves of oil, plus the critical minerals that will fuel the 21st century economy, and he's in bed with our strategic competitors.
And how has he been able to cling to power for as long as he has?
I mean, let's be very clear. This is a criminal organization masquerading as a government. This is an individual who is under indictment for narcotics trafficking, commits human rights violations, someone who has used the apparatus of the state to throw people in jail, to torture them, to kill them.
Let's just keep in mind, Saagar, we are literally backing a man who was a terrorist in Syria and doing deals with him and collaborating with him.
Far. Who sits atop the world's largest oil reserve in Saudi Arabia? People who torture people, who use an authority. I'm sorry. And this is what, look, I accept the premise. Yes, you know, he's bad and all that. I'll just say it. I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, Venezuela's problems are Venezuela's. It is not ours. I do not care who rules over the people of Venezuela. I do not care who rules over the people of Saudi Arabia. I wish the best for them, but at the end of the day, that's their problem. Many of them elected and chose that life. Yes, they stole the election or whatever. They stole an election in Turkey. They stole an election in multiple U.S.-backed regimes around the world. I have a certain point. I have a level of empathy that extends to the border of the U.S. From that point forward, do what you want to do. Secondary, this is about some strategic problem about China. I'm sorry, it's total bullshit. Once again, I will report from what Ryan and I were able to say, and none of this was disputed from the State Department, from the CIA, from the White House, all of which reached out to comment, and since in 48 hours have not disputed a single word. Nicolas Maduro does not care about China or Russia. He cares about himself. He told America, have as much oil as you want. I won't even sell it to China anymore. You can have all of it if you want it. And you know what we said? No. So it's not about strategy. It's not about any of that. I mean, literally, this is a psychotic operation from the South Floridians. Our friend Juan David Rojas, put this up please on the screen. A0 wrote this fantastic article. I really want people to take time out of their day to read it. Because if you have not been to Miami or South Florida, you do not understand the disposition of these Cuban and expatriate Venezuelan hawks who literally occupy our government in the form of Marco Rubio. Like, these people are deeply ideological. Rubio posted a photo of Maduro next to Gaddafi in 2019, implying that the nice outcome would be for him to be sodomized on national television.
Yeah.
That is the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor of this administration. Trump is surrounded by Floridians. If you're from Texas like me or California or whatever, you can't even put yourself in the brain of how crazy these people are. It's religious.
Think about the way Miriam Adelson thinks about
exactly.
Israel,
I was about to go there.
Apply that to the way they feel about Venezuela and Cuba and Nicaragua. It's really worth reading the article because he goes through the evolution of this, right? So you have these incredibly ideological actors, Marco Rubio chief among them, but others in the administration as well. And they were trying to push the typical, like, he's a bad guy, human rights, rigged election, and we're kind of hitting their head against a brick wall with Trump on that stuff. It wasn't really landing. And so it's when they turned to he's a drug kingpin, fentanyl. We got to do something about this. And especially because Trump had been frustrated in his desire to, bomb cartels in Mexico, thankfully, thus far, even though there's still a lot of desire to go in that direction in this administration. So he seized on this. And there's an added political benefit, which is, a lot of the Miami Republicans are upset about, Marco Rubio was supportive of temporary protected status for people coming from Venezuela and from Cuba and Nicaragua. And so now you have that temporary protected status being taken away. You have obviously this, insane treatment of Venezuelans, including the theatrical show of shipping a number of Venezuelans off to CICOT with no due process. And so you have a lot of Miami Republicans who are pretty upset about that and not happy with the treatment of, people that they have this empathy for and that they actually care about and feel are fleeing political persecution. In many cases actually are fleeing political persecution. So this is a way to sort of soothe both the politicians and the voters in South Florida who are upset about that. So it checks all the boxes. Trump gets to do his insane drug war. Stephen Miller gets his authoritarianism and his cruelty. Marco Rubio gets his ideological ends. MAGA is largely silent, few rumblings here or there, but that's about it. And so, that's why this thing just seems to be marching forward with a logic of its own, that if you poke at it at all, it all completely falls apart and is completely insane. If you ask the American people, there's polling out, of course. They're like, what are you talking about? No, I don't want another regime change war. And yet here we are marching towards it. And, just to pick up on the point Saagar was making about your view was well, I don't really care. It's up to them to rule themselves. I mean, number one, the sanctions we've had in place on Venezuela are part of the immiseration of that population. Number two, if you do have empathy for the people of Venezuela, ask yourself, how did it go for the people of Iraq? How did it go for the people of Afghanistan? How did it go for the people of Syria? How did it go for the people of Libya? We made their lives, we murdered many of them, and we made their lives absolutely miserable. It was not some humanitarian thing that we did there that turned out great and the women got to go to school. No, it was a disaster. It would have been better if we never got involved whatsoever. And so even if you are looking at those pictures of people in poverty and worried about it, number one, the thing we should be doing is making a deal with them and sanctions relief. That would be the best thing we could do. And number two, the absolute worst thing we could do is some sort of a regime change mess that is very likely to result in a failed state and all of the catastrophic human consequences that entails.
I mean, what you hear about Venezuela all the time is, it's been 25 years, it's collapsed their population, they used to be so rich, and all of that. Yeah, it was 25 years ago. What, you think you just undo 25 years of socialism and sanctions in 2 decades or in 2 years? It's not possible. It would literally probably take 50 years to undo the damage of the last 25 years. No, I don't want to deal with any of that. I'm with you. Make a deal. If they want prosperity, they can decide it for themselves. They hate Maduro so much, rise up and overthrow him. It's not my problem, at the end of the day. And it's one of those, I feel the same way about Cuba, which I know puts me at odds with a lot, again, of these South Floridians who think it's on America to go and free the island of Cuba. Again, it's been decades long. If they really cared so much, they would have done something about it. I truly believe that. And it's one of those where they want to use the power of the United States government to go in and to smash everything apart because, Maduro stole an election. Again, there are multiple US-backed dictators all over the world who have stolen elections. We still buy oil from them. I'm not looking for logical consistency or some great ethics. We're looking for deals. And again, if you want to counter China, he's offering the oil right now. He said, you can have all of it. I will even step aside sometime in the future or announce that I will, as long as my regime apparatus gets to keep power. That's not enough for us. And instead, we're sending carrier strike groups, all kinds of messages to Venezuela. Here's the latest one, Senator Rick Scott, again, Florida, telling Maduro, I would head to Russia and China right now, basically telling him to pull an Assad because the regime is going to go. Let's take a listen.
If I was Maduro, I'd head to Russia or China right now.
Because?
His days are numbered. Something's going to happen. Whether it's internal or external, I think something's going to happen.
The firepower that's off the coast, right? This is your armada. This is a lot of
U.S. forces. Are we about to invade Venezuela?
I don't think so. I mean, if we do, I'd be surprised.
Earlier this month, President Trump announced he approved covert CIA operations inside Venezuela.
There you go. I would head to Russia or China right now, and basically
something's going to happen, whether it's internal or external. Well, even if it's internal, that's still fucking us. That's still external. By the way, I mean, we know that the CIA has greenlit operations. By the way, Maduro is saying they already captured some CIA operators. There's, we don't have proof of that, but he's about as trustworthy as this administration.
Well, one of the again, if you care so much about the Venezuelan opposition, do you know what Iran did after all those Mossad killings? You know what they did? They said everyone who's opposition is Mossad, and they killed all of them, just so everybody understands. If you were a dictator and you had an outward threat, which is openly saying they're going to use their intelligence community to topple your regime, what would you do? I would say everybody who opposes me is CIA, and then I would kill all of them, because that's the logical thing that most oppositional, anti-Western dictators have done for, multiple decades. So it's only the best pretext in the world to kill everybody that you want to. Just to back up your point, let's go and put A6, please, up on the screen. This is from the Miami Herald. Venezuela just yesterday claimed to have captured, quote, a CIA group, accused the CIA of plotting a false flag attack, that they had captured mercenaries who had come from Washington and Trinidad and Tobago, coordinating military exercises, and said that they were trying to thwart some sort of false flag operation that would come to generate a full-scale military confrontation against Venezuela. I mean, the United States would never have a false flag incident in the Caribbean to precipitate an invasion, would they? Would they? Oh, right, USS Maine. Okay, well, let's get to the next part here. A4, Senator Lindsey Graham says he can, the U.S. could easily invade Venezuela. By the way, he also mixes up the names of dictators overthrown by the U.S. If you're wondering about
minor detail,
if you're just wondering about the intellectual firepower that's backing this, let's take a listen.
We didn't have a declaration to go into Panama. Bush 41 went into Panama to replace the leadership there because the Panamanian leadership, were working with drug cartels to threaten our country. Reagan didn't have a declaration of war, congressional authorization to deal with Cuban influence. So this idea of Rand Paul, I just fundamentally disagree with. To the other senators, you deserve more information and you're going to get more information. But there is no requirement for Congress to declare war before the commander-in-chief can use force. Panama and Grenada are two examples in our backyard where Republican presidents chose to go after countries and leaders that were threatening our people.
Preventative self-defense employed to counter non-imminent threats is illegal under international law. So if we are not at war and these suspected criminals pose no threat of imminent violence, isn't this potentially a war crime to be killing the people on these boats and then to be taking out a leader?
No, not at all. I don't know what manual you're referring to, but I know what President Bush 41 did. He took down Ortega, the leader of Panama, because he was involved in drug trafficking, threatening our country. So, yeah, the game is changing when it comes to drug traffickers and drug cartels. We're going to use military force like we have in the past to protect our country. That's the new game we're playing, and I'm glad we're playing that game. And if I were Maduro, I'd find a way to leave before he goes down.
I would find a way to leave before it goes down. By the way, basically a member of the United States Congress saying Congress doesn't need to intervene in a declaration of war, defending regime change, violent regime change, coerced regime change, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just
I don't know why
crazy.
Congress exists anymore. Yeah. I mean, it's pathetic. And this is far from the first time they've abdicated their duty, but they don't want responsibility. They don't want to be involved in the workings of our country.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this, but the legacy of Iraq was basically that nobody ever wants to take a vote like that again, because it all came back to bite them in the ass. It was politically convenient to take the vote, so they did. And then later on, Hillary loses the 2008 primary because of the vote. And arguably, John Kerry loses the 2004 election because he also voted for the war in Iraq, of that whole flip-flop label. Mm-hmm. So from that point on, they were like, yeah, we're just going to let this AUMF thing, and then everybody can float up to the president. They love it. They love it this way. Yeah. And that's why there's been permanent war for the last 25 years. They don't have to necessarily take any real responsibility stability. By the way, at the same time, let's go and put A5 here.
And
on
that's the
screen.
man Trump is doing a fundraiser
Yeah,
for.
he's doing a
First
fundraiser. Not
of
just
the cycle.
a fundraiser, the very first fundraiser of 2026, just so you're all aware, while punishing Thomas Massie. Interesting. Here we have Maduro again say that the U.S. is fabricating war as it deploys the world's largest warship, the USS Gerald Ford, on its way to the Caribbean to support, quote, anti-drug operations or whatever it is. It can carry up to 90 aircraft. It is the biggest increase of U.S. firepower in the region. The United States, by the way, I just checked this, now has more firepower in the Latin American region and in the Caribbean than at any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. That is how extraordinary the current U.S. buildup is. So we have CIA operations on the ground. We've got regime change commercials on 60 Minutes, one of the most respected, theoretically, one of the most respected names in news in the United States, watched by some 10 to 15 million people. We have press which is basically silent about this entire thing. I have yet to see a national Democratic politician or anyone make a big deal out of this. You know, yet, listen, I'm here with you on the White House East Wing. Can somebody stand up about Venezuela, please? Like, I'm begging for opposition, for anything, to say something. And no organized politician or movement inside of the right. Like, this is a full-on bipartisan op at this point, either from a tacit agreement or from just, you know, cheering it on outwardly. And I guess we'll all own the consequences. You know, vast numbers of Venezuelans likely to, you know, spread throughout the region. It could cause a refugee crisis. It could, I mean, literally, it actually could go the Libya route, since that's apparently what they want, and it could turn into an actual drug capital. Unironically, in the next 5 years, who knows what's going to happen?
It could destabilize the region too, right?
Course,
you know, the fallout doesn't just stay contained to Venezuela and then immiseration of the people there. You know, it could destabilize that whole area.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's all bad. It's all bad. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.